Hi students, now that you've measured out the wheel and set that aside, we're going to begin talking about what makes a successful design. And there's many tricks, formal principles, and a lot of that's covered in that quick video of the do's and don'ts of design. That information you're going to bring to our next session. But I wanted to bring up another element that touched upon that's really important to know about. And it's going to be one of the things I'm going to ask you to look for with your pod in the images that I provide on Wednesday. This is also going to be important in the next exercise, which is going to be the other half of the wheel project that you're working on. And in my watercolor class, it's going to be the project right after the first project as well, only they're doing something slightly different at the beginning. But you're both doing a wheel, and you're both going to be grappling with these design principles. Whenever you sit down to start a design, one of the best things you can do is use your tracing paper pad. It's kind of like a blueprint for what you might do later. And you can put it right on top of here. Draw your design, and then if you don't like how that's going, get another piece or erase and shift it around. As I'm doing this design, I want to show you on this top sheet what awkward moments are. Sometimes they're called tangents. They happen in drawing as well. And basically, once you have a experienced trained eye, your eye goes straight to what the problem is, and there's many ways that this happens. It's basically compositional principles, more do's and don'ts to add to that list that I provided in there. Okay, so one of the awkward moments that you want to avoid is when anything touches the edge in an awkward tension sort of a manner, when it doesn't feel like it's flowing or going off the edge. So this is one awkward moment. And the awkward moment is where this hits on here. Here's your perimeter. So when you're in your pod and you're looking to identify something like that, you want to look for moments where this collides with the edge in a very uncomfortable way. Another way to get an awkward moment is when something hits right with another object or shape right there. That's also an awkward moment. You can't tell what's in front or what's behind. What you want to do and more naturally do, and I could practice here, let's say I'm doing this on the other paper later, is instead of that, I would have this flow off the edge. So that's one solution, is let it flow naturally so that it opens up the composition and continues outside of here. Another option would be bring it down a little to give it some breathing room. It would be like if you did a portrait. You never see a good portrait where the head hits the top and then you've got this ridiculous space. It's just tension. What you see in a successful one is the breathing room up here around the edge, or going off. That would be a little bit more unconventional but natural. If somebody's here and their top part of their body goes off the edge, similar to this. Here you can resolve it by either spreading it out or having a natural overlap, deciding what goes in front and what goes behind, or what even goes through. But the main thing is you're not having that point. Another thing you want to avoid is things sitting on the bottom. This is the worst thing you can do in a drawing class. Is you see a still life, and instead of zooming in on three things, people will try to draw the whole still life sitting down there, and then they have all this negative space, or they stick it at the top. So you just always want to get a sense of the whole space. Another thing you don't want to do is chop off the corners. If you're chopping off the corners, then you've got this strange unrelated area. The other thing you don't want to do is have uniform placement unless you're doing deliberately doing symmetry. But even here, you don't want to have this lined up the same as the other, because that doesn't give you the variety. So be very conscious of how distant something is from here versus here. So it's just a conscious thing about variety as you go. So now I could take this off and use some of my ideas for what I want to do for the design. This tracing paper is a great tool, not just for sketching, but because you can see through. You're going to be able to trace and transfer with those 3 steps that I'm going to open up this week. So now, in case I want to redo that kind of subject, the other thing you don't want to do is have organic and geometric shapes colliding. And you'll see it a lot in that picture, is if you have something kind of rounded and organic over here, and then you have this edge that's flat, and then you have all these patterns that are geometric, and then maybe something more rounded here, you'll see in a lot of those, there's these awkward moments. But this pattern is jaggedy and jiggedy, and it doesn't go with this. And rather than have something flat, perhaps an oval would serve this still life type design better. Something we really enjoy is going off the edges in various ways. Having related things, but they all go off the edge. So you want to not bring in the jarring stuff. But the thing to remember the most in awkward moments, and I'll take a picture of this and put it in there. This is what you want to avoid. That's an awkward moment. That's an awkward moment. Cutting off the edge is an awkward moment. And having things that are unrelated jammed together, so there's not a natural flow, where you have a lot of round things on one side and square things on the other that don't relate, creates tension between them. That's another awkward moment. But when we're doing this exercise, you want to look for these kinds of things the most, where things are squished and jaggedy and stuck inside the design area and they don't flow. Basically, trust your eye and watch out for these kind of moments. As a group, when you have a few different eyeballs looking at something, it helps to identify these kinds of moments that are uncomfortable. So take a look when you do finish watching that other design video, and I'll put this in the announcement so you can get a sense of what awkward moments are.